He made it. Welcome.
Need any bears up there?
Yeah, no, it's moose. It's moose, a couple of moose. Where we
No
going?
rush, take your time.
Rick, you can sit on this side,
Okay.
right in here somewhere if you want.
Yeah, great.
Okay, you're all up and can everybody hear us in Zoom land? Yes, thank you. Okay, you're all good here.
So we'll call the meeting to order. It is 4:03. Okay, roll call. Do we have a quorum, Sharon?
I-
Rebecca Hastings is here. Garrett Levy is here. John Racine is here. Rick Vanderpool, and we have a few guests sitting in the room. Lisa Reed and Charles Hastings. Okay, Kristen is not here yet, and Ed is not available to join us. So is Max here? Is that Max?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Max.
So I'm here with for Horizons, and I'm here actually with my boss, Mike Sievert, as well.
Hi. Okay, so Max Schrader is a project engineer for the ski lift. Thank you. Hi.
Welcome. Hi.
Come on in, have a seat.
Where should I sit? I'm Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Just got it up and going, so,
Good to go.
yeah, everything's working?
Paper and pen.
Yeah, well, I actually brought my computer. Is that
Beautiful.
okay?
That's great.
Okay.
So Kristen Taylor is here. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
It's
I'm not
recording
meeting with
and
my
it's on
boss.
YouTube right now.
After
So
that,
that's
over.
normal
yeah.
How that goes.
things would be.
Are we allowed to put
You can.
if you're fully vaccinated?
Yes.
Yeah, if we're ever putting it on YouTube, we're recording it as well.
Yeah.
Eric, Mark was asking a question, so.
Sorry.
Yes.
Just wanted to let Sharon and Steve know that you are coming out over the group in your discussion about the computer. So just be careful.
Thanks, Mark.
This microphone's on right. Oh, point.
You don't need-
Okay. All right, so Max, you're first on the agenda to talk about the project, the ski lift and how it affects our wetlands.
Yeah, is it possible if I share my screen?
Steve, can you do that?
Absolutely. You should be all set.
Alright. All right, so I guess it's the project is going to be for the replacement of the White Peak Express line, which is for the Waterville Valley Resort. Have some pictures from about the mid to top section of it. And so that's if you can see my mouse, that's this line right here. So it goes most of the way up to Tecumseh. It's a fairly old line there that they want to replace and make the service a little bit better. So they're talking about replacing it with larger chairs that go faster. So that's going to involve replacing the base station and the top station and the towers along the line. So right here you can see is the base station. So if you're familiar with the area, you've got parking up in the top right. Then they've got the ski lodge kind of in the middle. And then directly next to that is the base station. So right next to that is some wetland areas, which will be impacted by the development. So you can see here on the left that's the existing station. On the right, you can see kind of there's a little depression area, which is the wetlands. This is just another look at the same thing. So you can see it's kind of holding a little bit of water. What you can't tell too clearly in the pictures is right underneath one of the chairs, there's kind of like there's a catch basin. So it doesn't actually ever fill up too much with water. It's been previously disturbed wetland. So this is kind of what the whole project is. So this is where the base station is on C101, C102. And then going uphill, C10 is where the top station is. We're kind of just going to focus today on C101 and C102 because that's where the wetland impacts are going to be. So this is the existing area. And you can see this dashed line here is the existing base station. And then the little wetland area around that. That's what's existing today. You can see these little squares there are the existing towers. And what we're proposing is basically it increases the size of the station slightly and involves some grading into the wetlands. So the light blue area is going to be temporarily impacted wetland area, and the red is going to be areas where we're going to have permanent grading within the wetland. So what you can see here is you've got the new station, which is more or less in the same spot as the existing station. Right next to it, there's a barn building, which is going to be used to store the chairs when the lift isn't in use. So because they're getting more modern chairs, I guess they're pretty much required to have inside storage when the lift isn't in use. And then over here, you can see this is the bottom of, they're also going to put in a T-bar station, which is going to go up about half that distance. So it's about 2,000 feet up Mount Tecumseh. And that's going to also have some small grading impacts into the wetlands. So that's just the quick overview of the project, if there's any questions at this point.
Did you want to say anything about the wetlands?
Well, I did the delineation for those who don't know, under contract with the Waterville Valley Resort, and it's these are long ago disturbed, filled, seepage, filled with gravel. I mean, the amount of functional value there is almost nil. So it's I would call more of a formality, I think, than anything else.
Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Mark?
Yeah.
Has the plan been, how has the plan been reviewed by the Forest Service? What steps have you taken with them?
So I think they had been in communication from pretty much the very beginning with the ski lodge and David Dean, who is the contact there. And they actually just recently reviewed the packages we'll be submitting to the Wetlands Bureau and the Alteration and Terrain Bureau. So we actually just got their sign off on the project late last week.
Yeah, that was what I was looking for, Max. Thank you. They've signed off on it as acceptable.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Mark, we completed a biological assessment and evaluation for the Forest Service for this lift line expansion, change. And we also incorporated a bat study, hired a bat ecologist to do an on-site intensive bat survey because there are a couple other projects in the queue up there, and those BAVs were accepted by the district. I think it was about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So we don't anticipate any issues at all in terms of wildlife either.
Well, I figured that you had done those studies. I just thought that it's important to have them on the record, that work has been done.
Sounds good.
Max, John, we're seeing here, hi. Any way we can get a copy of this?
Yeah, I mean, after the meeting, I can send you this and I can send you the plan set as well that we'll be submitting to the wetlands.
Should we note the bat survey date? Since you wanted it on the record.
Sure, the bat survey was completed in June and July of 2021. The findings were calibrated in September and the biological evaluation was submitted in October.
And Max, are you looking for anything else from the conservation group?
So as part of the wetlands permitting process, because it's a small impact, we wanted to expedite the permit. So after this meeting, I would like to send you guys that permit so you could sign off that you've reviewed the project.
Okay. So Rick, if there's nothing else, we can say thank you for your time.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark has a question.
Oh.
Oh.
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Erin, I would take a vote of the board to authorize you to sign that form that Mac's going to send you,
Okay.
just so it's official that the commission is okay with you doing that.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the proposal and sign off as a committee.
I'll second that, John, listen.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 John, aye.
Yep, good, and good. Now you're on the record. That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And if Tara is there, we'll move on to the next. Tara is here to talk about the Conservation Commission's part in the master plan.
Hi,
Tara,
so I know some of you, I've been working with the planning board for 4 years now on things like amending the regulations and zoning and reviewing some of the larger proposed development applications. This year, I've been helping the planning board with an update of the town master plan because it's due, it's 10 years old. And to both save money and make sure that it really is the town's plan, that I've been more of a coach on this process than anything. I'm gonna be taking all the different bits and pieces and writing up a land use plan at the end of this month, because that's kind of the guts of the town master plan, is really the planning board's recommendations for the future development of the community. And some important pieces of that are natural resources to be protected, natural resources to be mindful of during development. And then there's the land use plan itself of what do you want there? And then there's kind of following that, well, what facilities do you need to serve that? So the planning board was hoping that the Conservation Commission would be interested in taking the lead on the natural resources end of things. And it looks from what I received in email, it looks like you've made a really good start on working through some recommendations and thinking about what to bring forward from the previous plan. Some of the things the previous plan was missing that I'm trying to make sure get filled in this time are the background for things where you have lists of recommendations and policies. it's important to back those up with the science or references or data. I think you saw, I sent everybody a few examples of natural resource chapters from other towns. And I sent you the working draft outline I'd put together for the current update. So my goal in wanting to meet with you today was so we could kind of decide who's doing what next steps, what you all feel comfortable with, and what I should plan to do to get the material that you sent me into that working draft that I sent you. I think that's really the next step to wrap this up. That makes sense.
So Tara, the stuff that we've been going back and forth with, you're pretty okay with that? That Eric's been sending? And
I think it's great. It needs to get in the format of the plan now. It needs to get worked into that draft chapter that I sent you, along with some background information that either you or I could harvest from previous plans I've written, because the justification for vegetative buffers is the same no matter what town you're looking at. You can harvest some from the nice NRI that you have, but it needs to tell the whole story. It needs to say, here's why buffers are important, here are the water quality trends, here's why we're recommending buffers, and here's what that recommendation would look like.
okay.
So are there, I know everybody's busy and wears a lot of hats. Is there somebody on the commission that would be willing to do that next step? And I could work closely with them and try to give more detailed feedback if I need to, look at a draft along the way, whatever would be helpful.
Yeah, so Tara, myself, John Racine, and Eric would probably be taking the lead on that. So we'll have to touch base with you and go over what we got.
I mean, I'm gonna be wrapping up the land use plan by the end of this month, and I'm able to take the recommendations that you gave me and tie that in with the land use. So, you know, if you could try to get on the same schedule so that you're wrapping that up by the end of the month too, I think that's what the planning board was hoping. And along with that, all of the recommendations are gonna become part of an action plan that list who the lead on carrying out the thing would be, and what other groups or boards in town or whatnot would be part of that, so that it's not just something that sits on a shelf, but it's something that town boards can meet together once a year with that action plan in their hands and go through and say, well, what are our priorities this year? So as you're thinking about those recommendations, if you could be thinking about that, who would you, like, how would you do this thing so that it's real, not just words? Who needs to do what to make this thing happen? Have any questions?
I was wondering if we could use Rick, since the recommendations did come from the NRI that we already have. Could we use him to fill in the background story?
Tara, did you take a look at Sandwich, what we did in Sandwich at all, or the Center Harbor master plan chapters? Did you come across those?
No, I've written so many master plans. I have pretty good examples, but I mean, this is what where the town wants to spend the money, I guess. So, but I don't know that that's necessary, because I'm gonna rewrite whatever you give me to make it jive with the rest of the plan. This isn't gonna be the final plan. This is gonna be the Conservation Commission's recommendations to the planning board. So, it's easy enough to, if the Conservation Commission says, well, it's the material from the NRI that we want in there as background, just tell me that, and I can do the draft too. But we've just been a little bit stuck, I'd say, for for a month or so of not knowing who's doing what, I think.
Right, there was so much to cover. That's right. We just needed the guidance and we got a lot of that. Thank you. Anyway,
Mark, do you have a thought here to move things forward?
Well, we have an NRI. I think that, Eric, your suggestion that if Rick is available to draft what Tara is saying that she needs, and then that would be the Conservation Commission's recommendations to move forward, then Tara can review it and put it in the format that matches the rest of our master plan. That's probably, if Rick is available to do that, probably going to be the quickest and most effective way to handle this.
Or, what I'd say would save time would be if he took, so I'd sent them the working draft that the planning board is working with. If he just updates and fills that in.
Yeah, and then it'll be in the correct format.
Yes.
That matches the rest of our plan.
Right, and it'll be organized the way we're thinking about things.
Right, Rick, is that something that you have time to spend for us to get done?
I'm thankful that it's the winter now, Mark.
Yeah.
So, short answer is yes.
Okay, and our time frame is trying to get this. Yeah, and we're trying to get this done, by the end of the year, early January at the latest.
Yeah, so I need time to.
Yeah, so we would need a very quick turnaround.
I need time to work it in before New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Well, do the best I can.
Okay, well, yeah, and I still think it's because, short of doing it this way, I don't think we're going to get anything that's really usable. That makes, that is actually going through people who know what we should be looking for in this chapter in the master plan. So I'd be very comfortable with Rick and Tara doing that together.
Tara, what's the contingency if we don't have it done by the end of the year?
I don't know. I don't know what
Are there dependencies?
it's nothing's gonna turn into fire.
What are the dependencies?
I think it's gonna just take money and time away from other things that the planning board hope to do next year if it drags on. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it wrapped up so that we don't have to raise money again next year. And we can probably work out some encumbrances if we're a few weeks short. We have a way to do that if we need to. But again, we should target trying to get it done by the end of the month.
The other thing is, if I'm gonna go ahead and write the land use, assuming that these 3 pages I got are the direction I should go with that. And Rick, I need a heads up real quick. If you look at that and say, oh, no, this isn't right, or this is different, because some of these are really things that would go in the land use section and need to line up with the land use section.
Yeah, no problem. If you send it to me, I'll take a look at it this week.
It's from Iris. It's her.
Okay, so she's gonna send it to me.
Yes,
All
I
right.
will.
Very good.
It's on my list already.
So as I understand it, Rick will meld together the working draft that I provided with the background from the NRI and IRIT's draft, and I'll get it back just perfect. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
great.
Right, any other questions, points? Mark, you okay? Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Carl.
Thank you. Okay. Should we review the minutes before we talk about Priscilla and the wetlands? Should we do that first?
The minutes from November 8th.
Yes. Were there any questions about the minutes from November 8th? I think we had enough time to review them before today's meeting. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, old business.
Old business?
Old business.
Yeah,
Okay, we're
that's me,
skipping two
old
things.
business.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll skip to number 5, old business. Rick has an update on Snowsburg project. He spent the whole day up on the mountain today.
Yeah, I wish I had a highlighter to show you what, the route that I took, that it's in that 10 that we passed around. I started at the athletic club and checked out, the double culvert underflow under Valley View Road, and then went to Snowsburg Bridge and walked upstream to the point that was about 2.5 miles upstream. I covered both sides of the brook, and found so far, I didn't get up, I didn't quite have enough time to keep going to the maximum terminus, upstream terminus. But so far, about 2.5 miles of treatable segment, which is, that was a goal, was, you know, the maps were showing 1.5 miles, and I knew there was more. And so there's a good 2 miles, 2.5 miles from my current estimate of what I saw today that's treatable. And that's the first finding. The second finding is that Snow's Brook is either a second order brook or likely a third order brook. On the U.S. Geological Survey's map, is a first order brook. No. And that's a first order brook is a perennial stream, upper tributary perennial stream. If one first order joins another first order, it becomes a second order. If 2 second order streams come together, it's a third order. And it goes on down, it's Connecticut River 7th order. Okay, so it gives you a sense of how big a brook is, therefore how much material is being moved by the brook, how much velocity, flow, and discharge there is on the brook, and then what the probable treatment activities or actions should be based on the size of that, whether it's a second order or third order. And for some of you who don't know, Tin Mountain, where I work as their research director, we just completed our 24th stream treating with woody additions. We're up to 19.8 miles. So we have some experience at this. I've only been there 3 years, so I don't have as much experience as say Dick Ford and others. But and then I just say that because most of the treatment brooks that we do are second order or first order brooks. The fact that Snow's Brook is a probable third order brook because it's not marked correctly on the U.S. Geological Survey suggests that it's going to be a little tricky to provide wood that's going to stay in place because the velocity and the slope is so great. It's something else I've anticipated because we've seen how much flow comes through. We've heard all about the dam break and the breach and the, you know, every time I drive over from Campton, I can see all of the, you know, Waterville Valley sediment right there. So
No, that is not our sediment. It's not, folks. It's not. It came
not?
from the Mad River. It is
Yeah.
not from Corcoran Pond. And I
Oh,
think
oh.
that is something that we need to be very careful about.
Right.
Because we've been accused of that in the
Okay.
past.
So,
And
so
that-
Mark, I did not say Corcoran's Pond or Snow's Brook. I said Waterville Valley.
Okay, all right.
All right?
I just,
And I-
people have an issue, the sensitivity of this is
Yeah.
that after Tropical Storm Irene, we were accused by fellow town, sister towns of being the source of that material from Corcoran's Pond. And when you say Waterville Valley, people think about that dam and they think about Corcoran's Pond. And a lot of the flooding that occurred during Tropical Storm Irene downstream from us in Campton and, all along the river was attributed to when our flashboards activated. And we purposely studied that to make sure that we were not having an adverse effect downstream. So that's the only reason that I say that, Rick, is, people sometimes attribute things to sources. And when DES looked at the Mad River in total running through Waterville Valley, we found that Snow's Brook, what that added when the flashboards activated was a very, very small percentage of the water that was flowing, as you know, down the entire Mad River. And yeah, a lot of that material did come from the water, from Waterville Valley, from within Waterville Valley. But I think we need to be very clear when we're talking to people, especially outside of town, that has nothing to do with Corcoran's Pond. Because quite frankly, we're suffering the same problem in Corcoran's Pond that they're having at the dam in Campton, right? I mean, except ours is coming from Snow's Brook.
Yeah.
Instead of the Mad River.
So back to that, Mark, I'm not sure, but I should be able to, upon the completion of the survey, because I didn't quite have enough time to get to the upper reaches, to be able to determine whether it's a second or third order brook. It's not a first order. The largest tributary that I found was not just a perennial stream, but I think it was a second order brook as well, which means that if what I suspect is true, then there are two, in fact, second order brooks coming in to join each other, and then from there downstream, which would be about where upper Criterion, or Criterion rather, leads off. From there down would be a third order stream. I mean, I had measurements of between 5 meters and 18 meters in terms of wetted perimeter width. That's the flow channel, the active flow channel. And of course, that's going to expand on our flood regime, and there was plenty of evidence from Irene and other storm events where the side banks are being eroded away, and there is nothing to stop the sediment from going downstream. In the lower half a mile, there was virtually no wood. I mean, zero wood. In the next half a mile, there was between 0 and 1% of woody cover. And the only area that exceeded, or what I should say, approached the natural woody, coarse woody material cover was in this lateral perennial tributary, where there was an old growth patch that they just couldn't get to because it was steep sided. And there were 300 to 400-year-old trees in there. And there we got to about 6 or 8% of cover of coarse woody material. That is what we need to do in the rest of Snow's Brook to the extent possible. And there is one stretch about I'd say 200 meters maximum that's just so full of boulders that it's not treatable, because the boulders are doing the job. They're slowing down the velocity, they're busting it up, and they're dropping out the material. So we don't really need to improve on Mother Nature in that sense. But my guess is once I get to the upper part, that we'll have at least 3 miles, if not 3.5 miles of reach that we can treat. And it's, as you know, woody additions, you cut trees from beyond the bank, not on the bank, not next to the bank, but beyond the bank, and then strip hoist them into the stream and anchor them into the side. And what that does is slow things down. It traps sediment. And a lot of these lateral perennials and the lateral intermittents, which I went up 3 of them, there's already good trapping events taking place. But you get away from the immediate Snowsbrook zone, riparian zone, and the wood is a lot younger. So it's a lot smaller and it's a lot more healthy, which is a good thing for forestry, but not a good thing for dropping stuff into a stream to slow it down. So that's the concept. Colin Lawson, who I've been in touch with from Trout Unlimited, was willing to work with me on this project. He's got some ideas for funding, and then trying to remember the gentleman's name from the Forest Service. I contacted the district ranger. She put me in touch with the trout biologist there, and he's also supportive of doing something because they know they've got issues. One other finding was that we do have a couple of laterals that have culverts that have failed, and that's going to be an issue with the trail system. The Criterion was one of those that had a culvert, 2 culverts that were either perched and rotting and have holes in the top. So what I would suggest that I'm going to do with the Forest Service once we do the site assessment and finish that up and sort of coordinate on timing is to include in whatever funding package request, grant request we make, enough money to replace culverts that have failed. And I found 3 of them. They've been replacing them, but there were 3 culverts that were definitely in not good shape.
How do you spell that?
Culvert?
Culvert?
Oh, C-U-L-B-E-R-T, culvert.
Oh,
That's
thank you.
my mask accent.
It's just a new word in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yes, it's round tubes, you know.
Okay.
So that's the long and the short of it. I think it's, you know, there's a positive, there's good potential in certain stretches and certainly in some of the smaller lateral tributaries, but there's a couple of, you know, 10% grade areas that it's going to be very challenging because of the amount of water that's flowing down through there to keep whatever wood we add in place and not have it just wash downstream. I mean, that's effectively what Irene did. They just ramrodded the whole thing down. And the only places I found Irene sort of protected logs were the massive ones that were in the lateral tributaries, the smaller streams. So that's going to be a sort of an issue. But again, if you think about the job, you start at the very upper part, and you start slowing down and making pools and improving habitat as you go down. And the more you do that, the less the main channel is going to be able to flush out on the storm event. So that's in theory what we've done. This year we did a lower second floor Prentice Stream in New Hampshire, and we're, you know, knocking on wood that whatever events we have coming out, it's a good test case because it's the largest stream we've done besides the BB River here in Canton. So we'll see what happens. In terms of timing, my job is to finish the assessment. I'm going to schedule with Colin a time to do that, to get the upper part. And John, I'm sorry we didn't connect today.
That's okay.
But I know there's a nice trail that can get us right up there.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be easier to go up to the upper part.
Good, good.
What else? Oh, and then just, I'll just keep in touch with you in terms of my communication with the Forest Service folks to see what they say. They have funds, as you know, internally than our authorization funds, and I think ARPA's got there's some dedicated funds for infrastructure assistance. I mean, that's part of the deal, right? This whole infrastructure package. So there may be some money that could come, certainly some matching money that could come from the Forest Service, but I'm just guessing at that, and I have no authorization to say that it's true. But I'm suspicious that that is the case. So, Mark, any questions about?
Two questions for you, Rick. First of all, so time-wise, are we still tracking to get a number that we could put in the CIP before the second Thursday of January?
That would be optimal. And, we've been kind of, knock on wood, again, lucky in terms, I mean, it was perfect conditions today.
Yeah,
Deep snow makes it a little more challenging to see what's really on the ground, but today was perfect. And if we don't have any deep snows between now and the end of the year, I will be able to complete that second assessment, the upper part.
okay, good. Because that's really budget-wise, we need the planning board to forward the CIP to the selectmen at their January meeting. So I need to have a number to put in that plan. And then the second part of that, and I'm not talking about ARPA or any special funding, but generally in your experience, is this, when you say a matching grant type program, would this be 50-50 or 70-30, or how does that work?
They vary. So the most common NERF, the New England Rivers and Forestry Fund, has a 50%, a 50-50 match. So now you and I have talked about just a placeholder 50,000 in the budget, and I can tell you that should be good if it's the match money, certainly, because that would leverage to 100,000 if we're successful with some of these other grants. That being said, the grant rounds would be an application next year, I think I said, and then awards usually come in October or November. One of them comes in December, and then expenditure of that money wouldn't be until 2023. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I just think for purposes of the CIP, whether we put it in 22 or 23, the planning board can decide that. But I'm just trying to get a scope of what we can expect. So I think we have to put in the gross amount of the project. So if we put in 100,000 and say that it's a 50-50 grant match, we can put that in 22 or 23. We don't have to use it until, we have 3 years from the authorization to use it. So.
Terrific.
What did the ARPA opportunity look like?
Well,
It depends on how much the Forest Service gets and
Yeah.
how much they're going to count this as infrastructure, I would imagine.
that's correct.
Okay.
And that's where the trails actually help us out.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the Forest Service stands to get a lot of money for their facilities that they were not expecting. So I would anticipate that we could get something out of it, which may end up being more than the 50% match. What's happening in the water wastewater areas, if you qualified for 10% before, you're getting 20. If you qualified for 20, you're getting 30. They're bumping everything up. So, the 50% could go to 60%. Who knows?
any other questions at all from anybody? Yeah.
I'm Charles Hastings, just a guest of the group here.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by this project on Snows River because I've spent a lot of time hiking around it. I'm a little curious. I haven't checked the mileage, but is this plan going to extend pretty much all the way up to where the river approaches, it goes through kind of a neck in the valley that starts to level out. There's a broad kind of a plain before it goes up to Lost Pass.
Right.
So how far up do you anticipate going?
That neck part that you missed as far as I got today.
It's really a tangled mess.
Yeah, and that's good. You know,
Not
so-
if you're trying to walk through it.
not if you're gonna watch it, we'll find that out, you know, next time, but, you know, again, just to give you an example of the lateral streams on the east side, there was 3 intermittents that were of significant volume, that had enough loose material that they could easily be treated and help offset whatever comes into the main stem. On the west side, there was that perennial stream, which I think is a second order perennial.
Coming out of Flat Mountain.
Yeah, and it's right, and there are 2 forks to it, pretty substantial forks. And I know one of those forks is perennial, but I'm not sure of the other one. That's what I have to it's sort of right at the edge of whether it's perennial and intermittent. Maybe you know, Charles, from having walked it.
I haven't walked on that side of it because for good reasons, yeah.
Yeah. So that's gonna, you know, help determine how far up we need to go into that sort of flat basin below Lost Pass. And I haven't yet been there, so I can't tell you exactly, but we go right until the stream is no more than a meter or 2 meters across. And that's enough, because as you know, the discharge on some of these 5 to 10% slope stream reaches is pretty remarkable and can destabilize banks very quickly if there's not enough slowing it down. And that's what, you know, I think what's happened, why we've had so much sediment go in the pond.
And one other comment, maybe I should put on my AIA hat. And as you're going up the stream on the left-hand side, there is, I'm sure you must have walked part of it, there's a very historic trail, which was in fact at times called the Lost Pass Trail. Parts of it are in excellent condition, but a lot of it's pretty high above the bank, so I don't know how helpful it would be. And, but there were records of this trail going back to very early 1800s, and it's been a lot of historic interest. And we cautioned against actually making it a legitimate trail for the Forest Service's benefit. The other thing is that partway up there, there's the trail passes through an old abandoned logging camp. You may have seen remnants of it up there. You know, it's a historic interest. And I think the camp is set back a little bit from the actual road itself. Should be aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for mentioning that. I did come down that trail on the return, and I noticed that it was a very old trail. I thought at first it might have been an old rail line, logging rail line. But there were a couple of steep grades that I thought maybe exceeded that. There was a couple of bends too that seemed to be too sharp to accommodate, you know, small gauge even. So there is a place though, however, where that trail comes down and there's a stream that's taken out the base of that trail from one of these, you know, probably Irene, and that was one of the side streams that I think we could do some work on. So thank you for that information. I'll look for the logging camp too. That should be fun.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Okay.
We do have a quick question in regards to the land that the Conservation Commission just purchased. There, what was that? 32. So we're working on getting that changed to a green belt. And once that's done, would that still be eligible for grant money? Once it gets into a green belt?
For what purpose?
What we're doing now is, because the stream comes down right alongside of that, so that's not. If there's grant money for that, would it be?
Yeah, I'm not quite.
You're mixing 2 things. So the other question was, there's been a request for a zoning change
Right.
from BC to Greenville.
Gone through all kinds of different land use zone types in our treatment regions. So the only thing that could relate to it is if you were, say, looking to put that land under permanent conservation easement. So whereas you change the zoning, that's one thing, but if you put it under permanent easement by having a third-party easement holder, the money that it would cost to do that could be offset by one of these restoration plans. And that's specifically the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund that I work with. And they have a restoration mandate from the Army Corps where lands can be protected in upper watershed positions to help protect wetlands and riparian zones. And they give you not only money to buy the land or put an easement on it, but to fix it, as it were, like rebuild culverts, bridges, remove streams. And so those, we've paid for like Nash Green, we've done a lot of projects in Nash Green, and that's, so Colin and I have been talking about that as well. It would work for town, but it would not work for Forest Service. We could not use farm funds for Forest Service. So that's, and it's a little tricky there in terms of what the title is, but
So you would approve our continuing to ask for the zoning change?
oh,
Or-
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I think
It's-
that's
it's done. It's on the agenda for January. I got that notice today,
That's the
January
planning board.
13th. Planning board.
At the planning board.
At the
level.
planning board level. Okay.
well, we got work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
We got work to do. All right,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
That was great.
So we're going to conclude our meeting talking about the letter of
Right.
opposition.
Yeah, which.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't need to.
No, you've
I
heard
know
enough.
too much about Dalton. We know my
Yeah,
wood debris behind. Sorry about that.
you would agree.
Yeah, I've got a pocket full here.
Proof of evidence, yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Rick.
All right.
We'll-
Good to
We'll
see
talk to you soon and I will send you that information.
All right. Yeah.
It must be sold.
Oh. That was enough. Yes. Yes.
Are you kind of up to par of what discussion we just had with Rick?
The Snows Brook,
With all
Or
what he's,
the-
what he always trying to do, trying to keep the sediment coming into the pond, because every time we dredge that,
yes,
it's about $600,000 or $700,000 more.
wow.
So
It's
we're
going up.
trying to put less money into the streams up further so that we don't have to spend that $700,000 dredging the pond every 5, 6, 7 years.
Yes, I think we talked about that on the October 4th meeting
good.
I dialed into, so I kind of
You
learned on that.
Okay.
But I certainly am not a subject matter, know any detail,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
but I have a good overview, I think.
but just want to make sure you were
But
involved.
thank you, yeah.
Which is good. Okay.
Any privilege of the floor? Charles is good, we're all. Lisa? No, good. All right, so can we take a minute to answer questions about our notes from last month?
Oh, yeah.
Were there any? Yeah,
We need to okay
Yeah.
the minutes.
our minutes from November 8th. Yeah. Mark, were there any updates on the well number 3? Nothing? Have you heard anything from contractors?
No, it is, the project is out to bid right now and bids are due the first week of January.
okay? They're all right. So we should make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Accept our minutes from November 8th. All in favor?
I'll second that.
Just second, sorry. Sounds good. Any discussion, question? No. And then we can, all in favor? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Beautiful.
You should ask for opposed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. No opposition to passing, to approving our minutes. Thank you. All right, and the latest news is old business. I think we did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, was your question about the zoning change, the zoning proposal changing the funding? That was really 5B, right?
Yes,
Okay, gotcha. That's what my notes read.
right. And Ed isn't here, but he did have a question about if this affects anything. So I will tell him it's fine.
Yep, I got that in the notes too.
And that means somebody should attend the January 13th hearing. Somebody from the commission, or do we not have to attend?
To the.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm the,
Oh, you can go.
I'm the ex officio, so,
Okay.
So you'll vote on?
yes.
Yeah, it's a public hearing, Thursday, January 13th at 8 a.m. And you can pass this down to Kristen.
These are stuff.
I'll hold on to it. I'll hold on to it until I have it. Okay. Did you get to see the map?
I did.
Yeah, you did?
I got it.
And last on our agenda is the opposition to Priscilla's application, wetlands permit. So I apologize for barraging everyone with a million emails today, but we were hard at work at editing and adding, and Rick Vanderpool was helpful in doing the research and helping us edit. And so, does everyone know what's going on there? Okay, so you've looked at the drafts, several drafts floating around. Okay. I think we have basically two drafts, Ed's final draft and our draft. Are there any questions? Mark, did you have any questions?
Yeah, just a question and a couple of comments. So are you guys aware, are there any other conservation commissions or boards of selectmen from the Pemmy-Baker Solid Waste District which have sent these types of letters to DES?
So the only towns I'm aware of that have been involved and have sent letters, first of all, the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions is ruling in favor of opposing this particular wetlands permit.
Okay,
So, and the towns of, I wrote this somewhere, Carroll County, let me see, Sugar Hill, Littleton, Franconia, Carroll, Merrimack, Whitefield, Lisbon, the Sierra Club, and the NHACC.
okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we understand. So the issue that I have here, the reason that I asked that question is that Casella is a vendor for the town of Waterville Valley. Okay, that does not make what they are trying to do in Dalton a good idea. And it doesn't mean that their operation in Bethlehem is perfect. All right. But the way that this letter is written, there are some statements here that I think are problematic when a town is talking about a company that is a vendor that is currently serving them. Okay. And I think that there are many points in this letter that are absolutely correct, are probably accurate. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of the application process and everything that's going on. And so while I think that there are some good points in here, I think statements that are critical of Casella specifically and statements that charge Casella as a company of wrongdoing is not the way that the commission should be presenting an argument in opposition to the landfill. Okay, this is going to be on the record at the state of New Hampshire for the Waterville Valley Conservation Commission to be in opposition to the Dalton landfill wetlands application. Okay, this is going to be public record. And we are accusing our vendor of wrongdoing. And I don't think that you should do that. I think that the arguments that, and here's an example of, so Casella has not applied for proper wetlands permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. Well, unless you have personal firsthand knowledge from or a statement from the Army Corps of Engineers in your possession that says that that Casella is in violation of their permit application, I don't think you should put that in there. Okay. Where you say, similarly, in Dalton, Casella has ignored local authority considerations and has not applied for any local approval, despite Dalton twice passing an emergency temporary zoning law that requires such an approval. Well, if the state of New Hampshire is the permitting authority for the landfill, okay, and if Casella is following all of the requirements under the DES regulations, and those regulations do not require them to apply to the local planning board or the local board of selectmen for a permit, they don't have to. Okay, so I would not include that in there. It's just inflammatory. Okay, and while it may be the case, if their application doesn't require them to do it, why would they do it? All right. So again, I think the town of Waterville Valley and our operations to dispose of municipal solid waste, okay, are being done within a process that is regulated by the state of New Hampshire, okay? And the permitting process of the Dalton landfill is going to be done by the state of New Hampshire. Now, I think your argument is, and there's a couple of places in here where you talk about it, I think the argument is with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And that should be the focus of the letter. I don't think we should go around accusing a private company. I'm not supportive of Casella. Okay, so don't take me wrong. I don't agree necessarily that we should have another landfill in the state of New Hampshire. But the argument that the town should be having is not with the company Casella. It is with the DES. The DES is who is wrong here. They have not updated their municipal solid waste plan for what, 20 years, 15 years? They have been lax in their enforcement of what Casella is currently doing in Bethlehem. They have not been following their own rules in the permitting process for the Dalton landfill. But that's not a problem of Casella. That is a problem of DES.
Right.
Okay. The state of New Hampshire, the government of the state of New Hampshire is allowing Casella and other solid waste contractors to bring out-of-state waste into our state. There is no one supporting at the state level laws to make that illegal. Would we even need the Dalton landfill if we had sufficient laws that prohibited out-of-state trash from coming into our state? Okay? I think that as a conservation commission, rather than pointing, as a lot of this letter does, the finger at Casella, okay, you should be pointing the finger at DES, the legislature, and the governor, because those offices are the ones who are allowing this to happen. And so if the tone of the letter was focused more on the state and less on Casella, I think we could be supportive as an entire community. Okay, we are only using Casella because because they are running a place to take our solid waste, which we are charged with disposing of properly. And we are, as much as you love or hate the Bethlehem landfill, it is permitted by the state of New Hampshire, and it is a legal place for us to take it. Should we be finding a different place to take it? Absolutely. But the state of New Hampshire is not making that possible for us.
Okay, I get your points.
So
and the letter was directed to the DES. You see that.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is the wording that criticizes in these different places Casella for not doing this, not applying for the proper permits, and all, unless you have personal knowledge of that happening, I think the two places in here where you say you talk about 49% of all of the waste that is disposed of in the state of New Hampshire is coming from outside of the state, should be like the major point of why we don't even need the Dalton landfill. And I think that's a better approach. Talk about increasing recycling. Where is the state's recycling plan? Where is legislation that encourages recycling?
Yeah.
You know, those are.
I agree with your points. There's one problem with that. The wetlands permit is due on Wednesday. That's why all this went out. Or this hasn't gone out yet, but this was the push to get the letter out.
Right, but why do you need to say that Casella has a history of not being a good neighbor? We have nothing to do with that. That has nothing to do with our town.
We're supporting the conservation commissions up north.
We don't
That's
know
what-
what they said.
But we are,
Not be accusing.
we're,
Priscilla.
we're accusing our vendor for the trash that they're taking from our community. I don't want to get into this he said, she said type of a situation where we are accusing a company of doing something that we are not involved in at all, other than the fact that the trash is coming from us.
So I have a question. If we nix that paragraph that says similarly in Dalton, Casella has ignored local authority, nix that.
Yeah.
Nix, the second one, we also note that Casella had mired in controversy, nix that paragraph. Keep, this leaves New Hampshire open and vulnerable,
Yep.
detrimental of accepting out of state weights. Nix the next paragraph, Casella has a history of not being a good neighbor.
Right.
Nix that whole paragraph and then end with, we, the conservation commissioners, are weighing against this proposal. We stated the bullet points up top, at the end, we say we weigh against it,
Yeah. And
like that.
yeah, and I would even put, I would put that, you've got next to last bullet is why accept the fact that 49% of the weight, I'd make that the first bullet. Is there
Yeah.
even a need for the Dalton landfill?
Yep,
When we are accepting 49% of the waste stream in this state that's going into our landfills is coming from somewhere else.
yep.
But the
Right.
letter is going to DES, not New Hampshire State Legislature.
Right, but your argument as a conservation commission, I don't think should be based on how you feel Casella is doing as a company. They aren't regulated by the Bethlehem Conservation Commission or the Dalton Conservation. They're regulated by the state. Point the finger at the problem,
That is true.
you know? And I would get rid of the bullet that says Casella has not applied for the proper permit.
Right.
I would not go there unless you have personal knowledge that that's the case.
But all these points came recommended from other sources,
Okay,
trusted sources.
Yeah.
well,
So
But I think the
But-
goal is just to say, given all these things, we don't agree with that. And we're good neighbors to the other, right? The
Yes.
other conservation
Yeah.
communities. So we are saying that we can't get into the details because we can't take that on battling
No.
like the end, you know, with higher powers.
okay.
But we need to rewrite that.
but I
Yeah,
Right, I agree.
yeah, and so, I mean, overall, having a letter go out that is against the granting of the wetlands permit is fine. I just think that you have to be careful as a municipal entity in the way you say it. And I still think that we're letting DES get off the hook
Oh, yeah.
because everybody's furious with Casella. And we're not being furious at the right people,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because we're really being let down by the state of New Hampshire.
Yes.
We really are. And they won't live up to it until we hold them accountable.
but maybe we do that in another.
And absolutely, I would say if you're gonna send this, then
Want to make sure we're buttoned up and.
yeah, exactly. I would excoriate the state. Yes,
Okay.
I would. I mean, take it to them that I think every conservation commission should.
Now, the problem is they didn't give us enough time to gather our thoughts and our ideas. When you
Well,
said,
and-
yeah, that was last week. And they told us that their application is due on the 15th.
Well, what would be wrong with writing a letter that just says that the Waterville Valley Conservation Commission is against the wetlands permit application because we don't even feel that you should have another landfill in the state, period.
I started with something simple to the point, and the feedback was, oh, that's not effective. You need to
Well,
really give it to them. Okay, So.
Yeah.
listen to all this
Well-
feedback.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to have it, and we'll always have it, right?
Right.
It's just we don't send it all. We'll have it in case
Right.
in our arsenal, you know?
Great.
And it may come out later too, in another response.
Yes, that may come out, it's true.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you for listening, and I appreciate your consideration of,
It's very helpful, Mark, so.
and we are trying to get away from Casella. We will be looking at all of our options to reduce our waste stream, to recycle more, to find a different alternative. But quite frankly, if Dalton is permitted, if it ends up being permitted as a landfill,
Yes,
we have to consider that as an option.
it will be an option, but hopefully by the end of the year, we will have some information for you to consider, other than the landfill. So I'm crossing my fingers and hope to have good news. Okay,
Okay,
gotta stay positive.
Mhm.
It's an issue.
Yeah, for sure.
all right.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, back to the drawing boards.
Well, not so much. I think
Yeah.
Kristen's got
Oh,
it
yeah.
nailed over there with getting rid of
Yeah,
those
and then we
two
can just,
items, and maybe like Mark
Move one
suggested,
bullet point
putting
and be
that
done.
49% up at the top.
Can you do that
Mhm.
and send it?
Yep,
then we can issue it.
I have to forward it to this computer.
Okay. That is great. And if there's anything you missed during the meeting, it's being recorded, so.
Great. I think I probably took too many notes. I'll
Oh.
have to consolidate them.
Well, I think it's better not to be so confrontational. And I think people listen,
Yeah.
hopefully a little better if you're not screaming in their ear. So,
But I can understand and empathize with where this anger and rage comes
Yeah.
from, all these northern town, north country.
Yep.
And so,
But the DES is
right,
they're the
It's sort of-
culprit,
the culprit, not
right,
the cell.
yeah.
right.
It's almost implied, isn't it?
It
You
is.
let this happen. You allowed this company to behave this way.
So hopefully they're not in cahoots with them and.
That's another story.
And
We won't- we won't
benefit
touch
from-
that. Okay. I appreciate all the feedback and input.
Thank you, Kristen.
And anything else on the agenda? How about
Date of
a
next
date of
meeting.
next meeting? Yes, so. Mark, is there a reason we need to meet sooner than February or March?
You need to approve what you're gonna do with the project. I would say that you would need a January meeting, right? Because Rick's gonna get you a proposal
Oh,
with a number.
okay. He's
Okay.
doing the second assessment. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, I would say if you could meet prior to the second Thursday of January, so that you could look at his proposal before it goes to the planning board and the CIP.
week before the second Thursday, you said?
Right, the second Thursday, sorry, I don't have my calendar. Oh, hold on. So the second Thursday of January is the 13th. So if you could have your meeting the 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
You will have Rick's proposal.
January 10, does that work for everyone? It would be a very quick meeting. This was the longest, I think we've done. January 10th at 4 p.m. Yes. Right, perhaps after that we can take a longer break, January 10, Monday. All right, January 10, 4 p.m. Okay, we can adjourn.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.